Hello, future officers. Welcome back to our daily deep dive into the most critical developments shaping the UPSC syllabus. I'm your lead mentor here at the think tank. Today, we aren't just reading headlines. We are connecting the dots between technology, governance, environment, and international relations. Let's begin with GS, Paper 2, Polity and Governance, and specifically, the functioning of the judiciary. Look at the screen. The Supreme Court is currently deliberating the integration of artificial intelligence into the judicial system. Now, ask yourself, why is this happening now? It's not just about modernization. It's about the crushing burden of pendency. We have over 4 to 5 crore cases pending in India. The court is looking at AI as a force multiplier. The slide mentions AI assisting in legal research and document analysis. Imagine an AI tool that can summarize thousands of pages of case files in seconds. This directly impacts Article 21, the right to a speedy trial. However, look at the concerns listed: algorithmic bias and the erosion of human judgment. In your GS4 ethics paper, this is a classic case study. Can an algorithm understand empathy or mitigating circumstances? If the data fed into the AI is biased against a certain community, the verdict will be biased. The takeaway here is that AI should be an assistant, not the decision maker. Moving to the next slide, we see that pilot projects are already underway in lower courts. This is crucial for your answers on cooperative federalism and judicial reform. The keyword here is scaling and oversight. A pilot project in a district court is different from implementation in the apex court. The challenge is standardization. If one court uses tool A and another uses tool B, how do they talk to each other? Interoperability is key, and we need a standardized protocol before rolling this out nationwide. Let's test your understanding here. The question asks, what is not a benefit? The answer is clearly option C, elimination of human judges. Aspirants, please mark this distinction. The UPSC will often trap you with extreme statements like AI will replace judges. That is incorrect. The goal is augmentation, not replacement. For your mains, look at the prompt provided. Critically evaluate. When you write this answer, structure it in 3 parts. First, the need, specifically pendency and efficiency. Second, the application, such as the translation of judgments via the SUVAS portal. And third, the danger, focusing on data privacy and the black box phenomenon where we don't know how the AI reached a conclusion. Let's shift gears to GS, Paper 3, Economy and Environment. We are looking at the National Green Hydrogen Mission, Phase 2. Why is this a governance pillar? Because energy security is national security. Phase 2 is all about export and cost reduction. India wants to be the global hub. Currently, producing green hydrogen is expensive. The government is focusing on R&D to bring down the cost of electrolyzers. Connect this to India's Panchamrit goals committed at COP26. We cannot reach net zero by 2070 without replacing grey hydrogen, which is produced from natural gas, with green hydrogen. On this slide, notice the ambition: global leader in supply chain. This is a geopolitical move. As the world moves away from fossil fuels, where we are dependent on the Middle East, we want them to move toward green hydrogen, where India aims to be the supplier. This represents a shift towards strategic autonomy in our energy sector. This slide gives us a crucial prelims keyword, SITE. That stands for Strategic Interventions for Green Hydrogen Transition. If you see SITE in the exam, do not confuse it with vision or healthcare. It is a financial incentive scheme for electrolyzer manufacturing. The answer is option B for mains. When discussing energy independence, cite this mission as a strategic step toward reducing our current account deficit by lowering our heavy reliance on oil imports. Moving to GS, Paper 2, International Relations. We are discussing the India-EU Free Trade Agreement. This has been a marathon, not a sprint. Negotiations have stalled for years over tariffs on automobiles and dairy. But now, there is optimism. Why? Because both India and the EU are looking to diversify away from China. This is the China Plus One strategy in action. The EU wants access to our digital market and data, and we want access to their services market for our IT professionals. This slide highlights diversifying India's trade basket. Currently, we rely heavily on specific markets. An FTA with the EU opens up 27 countries at once. However, keep an eye on non-tariff barriers, things like labor standards and carbon taxes, such as the CBAM, that the EU often uses to block Indian goods. This will be a critical point of negotiation. Let's check your basic economy concepts. The primary objective of an FTA is option B, reducing trade barriers. For your mains answer regarding the strategic implications, mention that an economic bond with the EU strengthens our multipolar foreign policy stance, balancing our relations between the West and the global South. Let's look at GS, Paper 3, Disaster Management and Environment. The central government is unveiling a new framework for climate adaptation funds for states. This is a recognition that climate change is local. A flood in Assam requires a different response than a heat wave in Rajasthan. The one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. This framework emphasizes vulnerability assessments. This is what we call evidence-based policy making. The slide mentions bridging the gap in climate finance. Globally, mitigation, which is reducing emissions, gets all the money. Adaptation, which implies surviving the changes, gets very little. This move by India tries to fix that imbalance at the sub-national level, empowering states to build resilience. For prelims, focus on the NFCC, or National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. Who implements it? It's option A, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Don't get confused with the Ministry of Finance. While finance holds the purse strings, MoFCC manages the scheme. For mains, use the phrase fiscal federalism in climate action when discussing this topic. Rocket Science Time. GS, Paper 3, Science and Technology. We are looking at ISRO's RLV, or Reusable Launch Vehicle success. Why is this a game changer? Look at the economics. Traditional rockets are use and throw. Imagine building a Boeing 747, flying it once, and crashing it into the ocean. That's how expensive space travel has been. RLV changes this to fly, land, refuel, fly again. This drastically lowers the cost per kilogram to orbit. This is essential if India wants to compete with commercial giants like SpaceX. This slide notes that this positions India in an elite club. This isn't just about satellites, it's a stepping stone to the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, our own space station, and future human missions. You cannot sustain a space station with expendable rockets, it is simply too costly. The question asks for the primary advantage. It is option C, significant reduction in launch costs. For mains, link this to indigenization of technology. We aren't buying this tech, we are building it. This is the epitome of Atmanirbhar Bharat in high-tech sectors. Back to GS, Paper 2, Social Justice. This slide covers the expansion of the Digital Health Mission, ABDM, to rural areas. The vision is a unified health interface. Just like UPI revolutionized payments, ABDM wants to revolutionize health records. But the slide rightly points out the bottleneck, connectivity and digital literacy. You cannot have a digital health ID if you don't have electricity or internet in a remote village. This is the digital divide. Here we see the potential solution, bridging disparities. Telemedicine is the key here. A specialist in Delhi can treat a patient in a remote village in Jharkhand if the digital infrastructure works. This democratizes access to quality health care. What is the ABDM primarily aiming to create? It is option B, a digital health ecosystem. It is not an insurance scheme, that is PM-JAY, and it is not just for government hospitals. For mains, when you write about technology in governance, cite ABDM as a case study for both its transformative potential and its implementation challenges regarding privacy and infrastructure. GS, Paper 3, Infrastructure and Economy. We are discussing the National Logistics Policy. Here is a statistic you must memorize. India's logistics cost is 13–14% of GDP. Developed nations are at 8%. This 6% gap makes our exports uncompetitive. The solution is multimodal hubs. Seamlessly moving cargo from ship to rail to truck without paperwork delays. This is where the PM Gati Shakti Master Plan comes in, breaking departmental silos. This slide mentions private investment. The government cannot build everything. The policy aims to create a regulatory environment where private players build the warehouse and the cold chains, while the government facilitates the framework. The question asks about PM Gati Shakti. It is option B, integrated planning. It brings 16 ministries onto a single digital platform to prevent the classic Indian problem: the road department lays a road, and 2 days later, the telecom department digs it up. Gati Shakti solves this coordination failure through technology. We return to AI, but from a legislative angle on GS, Paper 2, Governance. A parliamentary panel is calling for a risk-based approach. What does this mean? It means we don't regulate a chess playing AI the same way we regulate an AI that diagnoses cancer. The regulation should be proportional to the harm. They are also calling for an independent oversight body. This is similar to the European Union's AI Act. India is moving from laissez-faire, letting it be, to active regulation. This slide balances regulation with innovation. We cannot regulate so strictly that we kill the startup ecosystem. The report recommends investing in R&D while keeping ethical safeguards. It's a tightrope walk between safety and progress. Who released National Strategy for AI Hush-A for All? It was option B, Niti Aayog in 2018. For mains, use the phrase responsible AI. India's stance is not just AI for profit, but AI for social empowerment, aligning with the AI for all motto. GS, Paper 2, International Relations. Let's look at India in the Indo-Pacific. The keyword here is UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. India stands for a free and open Indo-Pacific. This is diplomatic code for countering hegemony in the region. We are collaborating on HADRA, or humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. By being the first responder in disasters, India establishes itself as the net security provider in the region. This slide lists the threats, piracy, and illegal fishing. Securing sea lanes of communication or SLOCs is vital because over 90% of our trade by volume goes by sea. If these lanes are blocked, our economy chokes. The term Sagar stands for security and growth for all in the region. The answer is option C, Indian Ocean region. This is India's strategic doctrine. Unlike the string of pearls strategy, which is often viewed as aggressive, Sagar is viewed as cooperative and inclusive. Use this contrast in your IR answers. Finally, GS, Paper 3, Environment. We are discussing urban wetlands. Why do we need a specific law? Because our cities are drowning. Look at the floods in Chennai or Bengaluru. We built over our lakes and wetlands. Wetlands are urban sponges. They absorb excess water. The proposed law focuses on demarcation. You cannot protect what you haven't mapped. This slide emphasizes integrating conservation into urban planning. Currently, urban planning is mostly about concrete. This law aims to make it about ecology. It's a shift toward blue-green infrastructure. The International Convention for Wetlands. It is the Ramsar Convention. Option B. India has a high number of Ramsar sites. For mains, link this to SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. The destruction of wetlands is a failure of urban governance, and preserving them is key to our survival. That brings us to the end of today's analysis. We've covered the spectrum from the ethics of AI in our courts to the sponges of our cities, and from the rockets in our sky to the trade deals in Europe. Your homework for today: pick one of the mains questions listed in the slides and write a 150-word answer. Focus on the structure, context, challenge, and way forward. Keep studying, stay consistent, and remember, the exam is not just about what you know, it's about how you connect what you know. See you in the next session. Jai Hind.